Well, good morning, everybody, and I'm glad you all signed in. This to me is a great way of getting information out because not everybody can gather together at the same time. So I am talking, well, let me tell you a little bit about me. I started Solutions for Special Needs Families in 2018. Prior to that, 15 years, I was a paralegal doing estate planning and probate. Sorry if any of you are attorneys, but I got tired of attorneys. I get tired of procrastination. So then my pendulum swung. I became the director of admissions at Marbridge Foundation in Austin. And it's a residential community for independent individuals with adults with intellectual disabilities. They have an independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing. So in 2018, I left there and started this business. And one of my favorite things about it, I do help families get government benefits or keep them, but it's educating parents to let you know what it is, what does SSI mean, or any of those questions that come up, especially getting close or at 18. So SSI, if you want to switch the slide, SSI means Supplemental Security Income. And it is a state or considered a welfare program. It has strict requirements, and I'll go into those in the next few slides. But if you get SSI, you get Medicaid. It just comes together. Because if you've qualified for SSI, you have qualified for Medicaid. Now, Social Security Title II means, as parents, if you've worked and you've gotten 40 credits, which means you've worked for 10 years and have paid into the Social Security system. Sorry about you don't get it if you pay in just to TRS, but the teachers' retirement system. So when we get older, we get to have Social Security benefits. When a disabled child that's been disabled at age 22 or prior, they're connected to the parent's work record. When the parent starts drawing their benefits, the child gets half. So, and with that, you get Medicare. So we'll go into that a little bit later. So, Supplemental Security Income is also known as Title 16. Can we go back? Okay. And it is for the aged, blind, and disabled. Adult receiving Title 16 benefits is known as the recipient. There's different terms for almost everything when you're dealing with Social Security. And the recipients receive their benefits on the first of the month. So these are some of the people that, I had said financially needy, aged individuals, 65 or older, blind individuals, and disabled individuals. Individuals who received SSI have no work record or very little work record. And I'm going to go into how you get credits and that, but I'm not there yet. Can we go back? Okay. And then if you have, like I said, insufficient quarters to qualify for Title II or the Social Security, the federal side. You have Title II benefits which are below 934, which this is going to go up starting in January. And that's going to be, everybody that gets Social Security is going to get 943 instead of the 914.
And parents, just to let you know, we do have some information specifically from the Social Security office regarding that change. And so anybody who's in attendance today, I will be emailing that information out to you, also with some other information that Barbara will be sharing.
Okay, thank you. So next slide. So government benefits change. If your child, meaning under 18, had SSI, they must reapply again, starting over after 18, because Social Security's criteria for disability is different for a child than an adult. Also, as a child, they look at the parent's income. So to get SSI for your child, they have to be medically fragile. They have to be, if you didn't have nursing care in your home, they would need to be living in a nursing home prior to 18. So at 18, the magic birthday, they're now considered an adult, and Social Security only looks at that person's income and assets to apply. Okay, next slide. Also, divorce is high in the United States, but divorce is higher with a couple with a special needs child. It puts more strain on the family. Now, just so you know, or if you know someone that's going through this, you can get child support for life for your child, because their disability is not going to go away just because they turned 18. Also, you can ask for a higher amount because the cost to care for a child is higher. Well, what happens though when they're 18, child support is considered the child's income. So then they are disqualified for SSI. So if you get child support, it needs to go into a first party special needs trust. That usually goes through the court, because then the court notifies the Attorney General's office not to go after the non-custodial parent, because they're paying child support but not directly to them. And so then they're eligible for SSI. Next slide. So to be eligible for SSI, you have to have resources less than $2,000. That includes if parents or grandparents ever opened these are different terms, UTMA or UGMA, like a Unified Trust to Minors Act. That's an UTMA, because at age 21, that's the child's money, and that will disqualify the child. So that's an asset. Then you've got, what if your grandparents of the child thought it'd be a great idea when they were born and bought savings bonds, and you don't even know about them. That can disqualify a child. But any savings account, any money coming into the child, any earned income, that is resources. So it has to be under $2,000 at the end of any given month, total resources. You must have a severe disability, meaning this is going to keep you from working, it's going to keep you from being able to live in the community on your own. If you live in the community, what supports do you need? There's a lot of different criterias. Medically, a doctor has to qualify you too as having a disability. You must file for other benefits. What that means is when you file for SSI, they look first, do you have any work credits? Are you eligible for Social Security disability on your own work record? And if not, then they deny that because you don't have it, and then they go on with the SSI application. You must be a U.S. citizen or live in one of the U.S. territories. So the individual is not working or incapable of earning a substantial wages. Now this year it is $1,640 a month, I think, no, 1,470. When I was talking to a Social Security representative, they said, well, while you're applying, your child should make under $1,000. When they're approved, they can make almost $1,900 a month. So think about this as if your child's working, keep it low if you're applying for SSI. Okay. Next. So Medicaid. So when you qualify for SSI, you immediately get Medicaid. And again, Medicaid has the $2,000 limit. Their legislation is going on right now, hasn't been passed, but they're wanting to raise that number to 10,000. They haven't raised that limit in over 30 years. And you must be receiving at least $1 from SSI to keep your Medicaid. Okay, next slide. So when you're first approved for SSI, Social Security is going to say, can your child manage money? Can they manage a budget? Because if not, they will appoint the parent to be the representative payee to manage the Social Security benefits. Now, it's not just about money. It's also about following the rules for Social Security. You know, understanding that you can't go over that $2,000 limit. What is the money to be paid for? What happens if you work? Reporting your wages to Social Security. So it's wonderful that parents want their child to be independent, but this is a very serious title. And many parents have lost, or the child's lost their benefits because the parents let them, or try to keep them as independent as possible, and this isn't the right area to do that. So Social Security will send you a letter saying you're named as a representative payee. You take that letter to the bank, and then you open a checking account titled Mary Smith as representative payee for John Smith. Once that's open, then you call Social Security and give them the bank number, the account and the routing number, and then they direct deposit into that each month, into that bank. Okay, next slide. So Social Security puts income into two categories. So 2023, the federal benefit rate is $914. So there's two ways of looking at income. There's unearned income. That means you did not work for it. But if a parent puts money into a child's account to help them, either to pay rent or to have spending money, whatever they put in there is considered unearned income. So you're not really helping your child by putting money into their account. I'm going to go into, I think, another slide row. But earned income is either working for wages, or in-kind support and maintenance. So next slide. Yeah, so here's my list of Title II benefits. That would be SSDI, Social Security Disability on their own work record, or it's also called RSDI, Retirement Survivor Disability Insurance, and that's from a parent or a deceased parent. If there's any VA benefits, interest, allowance, assets or gifts, winnings, and child support, those are unearned income. They didn't work to get that money. Earned income, as we said, is wages or the food and shelter in lieu of wages. So next slide. So we're going to start with earned income. So in this make-believe number, the individual is earning $885 a month. So they get an earned income exclusion of $65 and a general income exclusion of $20. So therefore, Social Security said, you can keep the first $85, that's yours. Now we're going to subtract that and divide the remainder in half, which is $400. It's called countable earned income. So next slide. So here at the top is your earned income. The exclusions, your amount's 800 divided by 2, 400. So your maximum rate's 914. Now they're going to subtract the 400. But if your child is not paying you rent and Social Security doesn't know about it, they say, well, that is income to the child. Because if you rented a room in your house to a stranger, you would be charging them rent for food and housing. So you need to do the same thing for your child, because otherwise they subtract $305 and then you're only getting $209 a month. And I can see Rachel's forehead like, why? Well, it makes a lot of parents go, why? So the representative payee responsibility regarding mortgage. Yes.
You right there real quick. I do want to mention, parents, if you are not able to come to our last parent training, our Social Security person asked these questions. If you as a parent were asked, would you rent this room to anyone? Your answer is yes. You would rent that room to anyone. Would you evict your child? Yes, you would evict your child. So I'll let you think on that, but those are how you should be responding if you are in a Social Security interview or they're asking these questions. That's how you want to be replying.
Right, and I help parents a lot get that 914 because one, you have to have a rental agreement, but you have to determine what that rent is going to be. There's two ways to go about that. You can either go, Social Security's formula is how much does the household spend for food each month? And I tell parents only $200 per person, because that's reasonable. You may spend $2,000, you're just going to put $200. But because then they want, what is your mortgage? What is your property? What are your property insurance, property taxes, electricity, water, sewer, gas, garbage? You add all of that up, you divide it by the number of people living in the house, and I guarantee you it's going to be more than the 914. I believe I go into it later on how using an ABLE account can satisfy that rent. Now, I've had parents with a mortgage of $5,000. No, it becomes exorbitant. So then we look at fair share. So what would it cost to rent a room with a private bathroom in your kind of neighborhood or area? And then you can use that as a comparable of what you're going to charge rent for. So anyway, I'm digressing. So if your child works, the representative payee is responsible to report the recipient's gross earnings before the 10th of the following month. Otherwise, Social Security goes, okay, so last month they made 900. Well, really, in essence, the next month they made 500. Well, if you don't report it, they're going to go with 900. Or they're going to go with 500, and your child's making 900, shouldn't be getting the amount that Social Security is sending you. They will catch up, and then they'll say, oh, by the way, you owe me X amount of dollars, please write a check. So it's important that you report the wages early so they can key them in and get the numbers right. Also, if the representative payee, and nobody's ever been prosecuted, but the rules are, if you don't report the wages, there is an overpayment, you as representative payee can be liable for the overpayment. Also, if you have this overpayment, you can request Social Security to take just 10% of whatever that is out each month until it's paid for, instead of going, oh, you don't get a Social Security check this month and this month and this month, because remember, you need that $1 of SSI to keep your Medicaid. Okay, and overpayments can be appealed. So there is the purpose of a work exclusion, and think about this as like a tax deduction. It reduces the countable earned income. It increases your financial self-sufficiency, prevent termination from benefits, protect access to Medicaid benefits, or to purchase items, and they have to be purchased by the individual, not by the parent, in order to work. Okay, next. So this is one that, if Texas Workforce Commission comes in and gets you a student earn and learn program in the summers, hopefully they understand this and they help parents file this with Social Security. Because if you're working and you're a student and under age 22, that's that magic age, then there's a student earned income exclusion. And this says you're regularly attending school. Well, what does that mean? In high school, it's at least 12 hours per week. In college, at least 8 hours per week. If you're in vocational training, at least 12 hours per week. So next slide. So a student regularly attending school and under 22 can exclude up to $2,200 a month from earnings. So they wouldn't count it against the SSI. If you don't use all the $2,200 per month, then it's cumulative. Say you only spent $1,000 next month, say you spent $1,220. My math's easier. Then the next month you have $3,220 of a limit that you could earn. Most people don't earn that much in school, but it's a possibility. And the student can exclude up to $8,220. I should have said in 2023. Sorry, my mistake. But that is a calendar year. And you have to reapply every January. Okay, next slide. So you obtain a written statement from the school official stating that the student is regularly attending school and the number of hours in attendance. Present the statement with a letter requesting eligibility for the student earned income exclusion to the local Social Security office, and then report all income each month. Repeat these steps the first of every calendar month or until the person reaches age 22. I just found out in Michigan they can stay in school until they're 26, but this rule still applies at 22. So here's your financial impact. So again, they're making $885. General exclusion is $85. Student, and then if you have the student earned income exclusion, you deduct the entire $800. So then you get full $914 a month versus $514. And the bottom, my caveat is that calculations assumes the beneficiary is getting the full 914. Next slide. So impairment related work expenses or IRWEs. This is an item or service the impairment needs, not the person. So going to the dentist is for a person, it's not for your impairment. So that wouldn't be an exclusion. And it has to be purchased by the individual with their money, and it has to be reasonable. You make $885, your exclusions can't be $900. And it has to be less than what you're earning. And you claim it in the month that you earn it. I mean, you pay for it. Okay, next slide. So what qualifies as an impairment-related work expense? So there's attendant care services. So if you pay for that at all, or you just make sure that your child pays for it. And the way they're going to have money is put it into an ABLE account, because it's like the parents paying for it anyway. The ABLE account pays the attendant care. Medical equipment, non-medical appliances, residential modifications, routine drugs and services, a service animal, transportation cost. Well, if you're working and you have to take off to take your child to work and then pick him up each day, you can charge your child for that. Now, it sounds crazy, but that's a way to lower their income to qualify. And if they're living in a community residential program, you can pay, exclude some of that. Fees for supported living. How much is it that, how much is paid for per hour an attendant to help you get ready for work, to help you do all these things, help you fill out an application? You can show those hours at an hourly rate, and that comes off the top of your of your earnings.
If I'm understanding it right, the cost of transportation is deducted from that total amount, or it adds to that total amount. Can you explain that to us? Because we do have kids between the ages of, over 18, between 18 and 21, who are needing to work, and transportation is an issue in our district. And so, they're having to pay $3 to go to work and $3 to come back from work.
Okay.
And so can you talk to us about
two things? Yeah. 18 to 21, they've got the student earned income exemption. And so unless they're making over $2,200 a month, none of their income counts. So once they're out of school 22 and they're working, that's when the parent needs to, or if the child's paying transportation to and from somewhere, child needs to pay that with their income. Either the SSI income or money in an ABLE account or money they've earned. Those are the only three things that are their income, their money.
Because if it's provided by parents or families free of cost, then they deduct it from the money they're going to get each month.
What they do is the parent has to, you can go to Walmart and buy a receipt book. Write out a receipt of what it costs each week or what it costs each month for the parent to take them and bring them back. And then from that, the parent, if they're the representative payee, can take the money out of the ABLE account or Social Security benefit to pay themselves. And then that number comes off the top. You've made 800, you keep the 85, you paid 300 for transportation. Now you're down to 500, and you divide that in half. So,
And that counts as their earned income, which is lower, and so they'll get more from their social security. Okay. If we have some parents in our district who are trying to apply for social security and are struggling to get accepted, because I know a lot of our parents are applying 2 or 3 times and still having difficulty, is that something that you can work with them, or is there a place they can go to get some assistance on how to report things?
sure, I mean, any question, they can just call me, and I'm not gonna charge to walk them through doing whatever they're doing. I charge when I have a project, something I can wrap my arms around.
Gotcha.
But that's what we do, is file for SSI. If they've worked and they've lost their benefits, getting the benefits back, appealing overpayments, and then long-term planning. Ask a lot of hard questions. Parents, if you haven't done so, sign your child up for all the Medicaid waivers possible in Texas. Texas ranks 50th. That doesn't mean the top, that means the bottom. It's a 30-year wait for home and community-based services. Now for the others, class Texas Home Living, that is a 15 to 18-year waiting list. Okay, I'll get off that one. You want to go back go back to that pink screen. Okay, this is the chart that shows you what is in IRWI. So here we've got the individual, and they're probably older, making $1,625 a month gross. They get the $85 exclusion, but now they've had $615 of deductions that the person's paid for. So they subtract that. Now the countable earnings with the IRWI is $925. Otherwise, it's $1,540. We divide that, we subtract that from $914, and this is your adjusted SSI amount. Now the problem's going to be if you're not getting the full $914. Then you've got to be really creative, because you can lose SSI and Medicaid. So it's important to get that maximum $914. Okay, next slide. Is that the next one? Okay. This example, somehow I thought I had one prior, but if not, can you go? No? Okay, next one. So this example is showing how you can get rid of the in-kind support and maintenance. This example is, individuals living at home with mom, and they have one other sibling. Sorry, mom and dad. The mortgage payment, and I'm including insurance and taxes, $3,000 a month. Average monthly bills are $300 for electricity, $100 for water and sewer, and $800 for food. So the total is $4,200. Because there's 4 people, you divide that by 4. Now the rent your disabled child's supposed to be paying you each month is $1,050. So next slide. So after the SS payment of $609 is received, the representative payee will pay mom and dad are the landlord, child's the rentee. So child pays mom and dad $500 each month. that you also need to open an ABLE account. Now, an ABLE account is like a 529C for college, but this is a 529A, yes. And so they can have over 2,000 in there. It doesn't count, like it's not really their money. It is their money, but they don't have access to it. They can't demand money because you've got, just like with a 529C, usually a parent sets that up for their child to go to college. So a parent is the one that's going to pay for the benefit of the child. Same thing here. The parent puts the money in, it's for the benefit of the child, but in this one it's considered the child's money. You can put up to $17,000 a year into one. Anybody can put money into an ABLE. You can open an ABLE in almost any state. I don't recommend Texas. One, they are not a bank. So because you could have Social Security directly deposit into an ABLE account, especially next year when it's going to go up to $943, it's pretty easy to get to that $2,000 limit. So if you have the money going into an ABLE account, it doesn't count on your $2,000 limit. But you can pull money out of the ABLE account and it goes into the parent's checking or savings account to pay for rent. So in this instance, a trust can contribute to the ABLE, a parent can contribute to the ABLE. You could put money in your ABLE, but it doesn't, that's, anybody can put money into an ABLE. It's the administrator that controls what it's spent on. So in this instance, the administrator is going to take $550 out each month and pay the parent. So I know it sounds funny, but parent puts in $550, takes out $550, turns around, puts $550 back in and takes it out again. But it makes Social Security happy. Now it has to be consistent because just like Rachel was saying earlier on what you need to tell Social Security, if you're living in an apartment and you go, oh, sorry, landlord, I just don't have enough money this month, so I'm only going to pay you $200. They're going to go, no, you owe all the money. And Social Security looks at this the same way. So if your child doesn't have enough in their SSI account, they're not working, they're not earning enough, then you need money supplemented in the ABLE account. But it has to, and all Social Security looks at is bank statements that show if rent is $1,050, they want a combination to be $1,050 being pulled out each month. They don't have to see where it goes. So this is, I'm a visual person. So here's your special needs child. They're getting $609 from Social Security, from the SSI, but the rent is $1,050. Family special needs trust can put money into an ABLE account. A trust cannot pay for rent. That's why you've got an ABLE account also. So money can go from the ABLE account to a rent account. SSI money goes to this rent account. And then you have to prove it to Social Security. Okay, next slide. So after payments have occurred for at least 2 months, representative payee will fax, mail, or drop off a form 561 to request for reconsideration, the bank statements from the ABLE and the SSI checking account. The money's going out to a rent account. The rent agreement has been signed. SSA form 8011 has been completed and signed. you send all this in to Social Security. If you mail it, do it certified. Don't trust the U.S. mail, and don't trust that Social Security is going to say, oh yes, we got it, but we didn't do anything with it. They'll just say, no, we didn't get it. So certify.
Barbara, I have a quick question in the chat. Did you suggest that the ABLE account be opened in a different state other than Texas?
Yes.
Okay, will you talk about that for just a second?
Sure. We're recommending California, I have to do this alphabetically, Maryland, Oregon, or Pennsylvania. There's no fee for opening it in that account. If you guys want, I can send it to you and you can distribute it to the parents, but there's a matrix of every state. It says, can you open it? Yes or no. What are the fees? What are this? What's that? And then you look at that to compare. Those 4 states right now say there's no Medicaid clawback. So that's something I didn't touch on. First party special needs trust and an ABLE account have what's called a Medicaid clawback, meaning when your child dies, if Medicaid has paid anything for your child, if you use that Medicaid insurance, they get to be paid back first. So if you have a first party trust, spend that money, you know. And you know, for child support, it's going to be easy for a parent to spend that money. An ABLE account, I recommend that it's a pass-through account. You know, you keep $1,000, $2,000 in, you take the money out, you put money in, you take it out. Because if your child dies and Medicaid takes back $1,000, it's not like if they took back 100,000, you know, you would think, oh no, I don't, you know. And so be conscious of what's called that Medicaid clawback. Those states, those 4 states I mentioned, don't have a Medicaid clawback. This is such a new program, it hasn't been tested. Does that mean you have to be living in that state for no Medicaid clawback? Or could it be you're, you know, living in Texas, you have an account there, and there's no Medicaid clawback? We don't know yet, but you might as well go with one of the best options possible. Let's see. You can have 2 separate accounts or one, just like I said. The ABLE account can receive SSI. SSI cannot go into a special needs trust or a first party trust. Okay, so there's certain rules again that parents need to know. Keep copies of everything you submit to Social Security, because there's no guarantee they keep them, no guarantee they won't lose them. Keep copies of all medical records, the original diagnosis, any psychological information, the IEP, FIE, the READ, the ORD. Those are important documents because Social Security will want to see those. But also it's important that if you're going to a doctor, make sure the doctor lists what the disabilities are, if they're taking any medications, if they're seeing a therapist, if they, whatever, a psychiatrist, whatever they're doing, keep copies of all that. Because you have to give that to Social Security when you apply for SSI. It sounds crazy. Somebody's born with Down syndrome. No, it is genetically proven. But Social Security wants that original diagnosis. Well, if you don't, or the hospital doesn't have the records anymore, all you can do is, since then, what doctors have said. Have they said he's got Down syndrome? So, you know, keeping copies is important. Okay. Next slide. Oh, that's it. Any questions? Because I've got time.
I have quite a few questions.
Go right ahead, and the parents, you know, let them know. Go ahead, Susan.
would you go ahead and talk about the waivers for just a minute? You started on that and then we got circled back to the slides. Will you talk about the different waivers for a second and tell us about those?
Sure. So there is, acronym is HCS. It's Home and Community-Based Services. That will either pay for if you want your child to be in a group home, or it will pay you as a provider to have the child living in your own home, and you're going to facilitate those services. It pays for a day program, it pays for transportation, it pays for basic speech, occupational, and physical therapy. It pays for hippotherapy or horse therapy.
And this is after 18, after 18 years old, that
right.
HCS.
Well, no, you can have if the name comes up, you can get those services before 18. Then there is one, and that's a 30-year wait.
30 years?
Any other state's better than Texas. Yes. There's another one called CLASS and Community Living. I don't have that.
Community Living Assistance and Support Services.
Thank you. That gives you a lot of therapies. It has aqua therapy, rec therapy, it has massage therapy, the hippotherapy, occupational speech, OT, occupational speech. There's, I think, another therapy it lists. It pays for transportation, it pays for respite care. I'm trying to go off the top of my head.
That's okay.
It gives you a lot of therapies, but it doesn't pay for living. HCS is the only one that will pay for living.
And on the note I have here, it says the child or adult must have been identified before age 22.
For all of them.
For all of them, okay.
And they must have an IQ of a certain level. You know, it's 70 unless they have more than one diagnosis. They have to meet the level of need, because if they can do all their ADLs and they can ride the bus and they can, you know, they might not get services, but it's really for somebody that needs assistance to live in the community.
Barbara, we just want to thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and resources with us today during this presentation. Parents, if you want to reach Barbara directly, you can do so right there. There's her email address as well as her phone number. Again, I'm Rachel Valentine. I'm the parent liaison here for Intervention Services, and co-hosting with me today is Suzanne Roden, one of our transition specialists. We just want to thank everybody for joining us here today.